Welcome to Fellowship Safaris, conversations about people of color and their journeys to subspecialist training in their countries of origin and around the world. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Fellowship Safaris podcast. My name is Dr. Jerry Kariajahe. I'm a consultant pediatrician and adolescent medicine specialist based in Nairobi, Kenya. Today, I am very, very excited about the upcoming conversation. One of the things that has happened in my journey in adolescent medicine is now getting to meet other specialists in the field who we're able to sit with and chat with and really encourage each other. And our next guest is one such person who has been a source of inspiration and a source of encouragement to me as I begin the young stages of my adolescent medicine specialist journey. And so without getting too far ahead of myself, I would like to request that she introduce herself and her professional qualifications.
Hi, my name is Leslie Walker Harding. I am a pediatrician and adolescent medicine physician, and I'm also chair of the Department of Pediatrics at the University of Washington in Seattle, Washington, in the United States.
Oh, wow, that is so fantastic. Welcome, Karibu to the podcast.
Karibu.
Yes, I want to start by asking, did 5 or 6 year old Leslie ever envision that this is where she would be professionally?
Oh, no. I think I probably wanted to be a dancer. Back then, I loved dancing. I loved singing, but I couldn't sing. So dancing became very important when I was a little kid. But not being a doctor, not till I got to be about 12 or so.
Okay, so what happened at age 12 that helped make that decision around wanting to go into medicine and becoming a doctor?
I didn't have any doctors in my family, but I loved science, and I loved really specifically the science of humans and, wondering why we did the things they did. I was a really voracious reader, and I thought maybe, I could pair the people interest with the science interest. And I came up with maybe it would be nice to be a doctor, but I didn't know much about it other than, the doctors I saw when I was getting my checkups.
And that's so interesting that while that had not been modeled, you still wanted to be able to pursue it. And what are some of the things that pushed you in the right direction in your teen years to, start working towards that?
Yeah, one thing in particular stood out in middle school. One of my teachers in middle school, I think I was in 7th grade, knew that I was interested in being a doctor. And so we had a career day, and she had me be the hostess of the doctors that came. And they said one thing to me, like when I would walk them around, I asked them questions, and they said one thing that I took with me all the way through. They said, don't worry about it being hard. Each year you will learn more, and you can go to the next step. You will be ready for the next step. Don't worry about your grades. Just keep your focus and go to the next step, and you will get there. And I took that with me even through medical school.
That is so beautiful and so much, nail on the head, because I think that best describes medical school across the world in terms of Don't worry about it, just do what you can now in the moment. And when it came to now starting medical school, what was the most exciting thing for you during your medical training in the early years of becoming a younger doctor?
Yeah, in the early years, I think one of the most exciting things is to be around people who all had the same, interests of being a doctor, kind of, that community of people, and just really testing that you can do it. It's scary the first year. You think maybe I'm going to, not make it. It's so hard. The school I went to, we had 11 courses the first semester and 15 the second. That's how they did it. And it seemed so overwhelming that sometimes people would plan not to pass a class so they could just go to summer school. But for me, it was really going through that first semester and realizing I could do it. I was not a science major. I took the science requirements to go to medical school, but I was not a biology major. I took a liberal arts degree. And so I was very scared going in that I wouldn't be able to make it. But I realized I could. And I realized it really was the right place for me because I was very interested in everything that I was learning.
I love that you mentioned the liberal arts. How did having studied the liberal arts impact how you got molded as a doctor and practiced?
I think it gives you perspective because, again, my interest was really in people. Now, so I wanted to major in sociology. I loved sociology, but my mother said, you do not major in sociology because you won't find a job. So she really forbid me. So I found this other degree. It's called human biology. So it sounded like it was biology. And then I got no more grief, but I took mostly sociology classes. And I just loved, the whole idea of why people do the things they do and why culture is so important and so different depending on where you are was very fascinating. And so what we do is a people business. It's all about the people, the one-on-one, the, teaching and, all of these things, but it comes down to people. And I think having some understanding of people and how you might need to interact with them is probably what made me even go into adolescent medicine. But it was helpful in terms of trying to respect and trying to understand people that might have come from a very different background than me.
Well, I absolutely love how you started learning about why people do the things they do and sort of like just getting a better understanding of culture. And I love the connection that you've made also with adolescent medicine. However, what else encouraged you during your med school years to think about adolescent medicine as a specialty?
Yeah, there was one specific thing. I had a lecture. I didn't even know that adolescent medicine existed. And part of the other reason I went into med school was I saw growing up kids with so much potential and then somehow get, not in their own decision, but get kind of derailed and going directions that really, they probably would have gone different had they had the opportunities. And so when I was in medical school in my second year, a woman came and gave a lecture on adolescence, and I was just excited. And I went up to her afterwards. I said, is this really a profession? Can I do this like 100% of the time? And she said, yes, this is a profession. You can do this. You can go get training. And so from that moment, I never changed. And it has been an amazing career.
And this is as early as second year. That's pretty
Yes.
early, in terms of making that decision.
Yes. I think what I didn't know is, for adolescent medicine, you can go into internal medicine and get the training. You could go into family medicine and get the training, and pediatrics and get the training. So what I did after that was try to really understand where I wanted to get my residency training before I got the specialty training. But yeah, I was very clear when I got that. To me, adolescents are just the most exciting. They come in and maybe they're coming in because their head hurts. And then you go through all of these other things that they wish they could talk to an adult about who could help them through with their health. And I just find it really exciting to work with teens and their brains. And, so even in medical school, I tried to find experiences where I could work with the teen patients a little bit more.
Oh yeah. Like there's so many things that you're saying and I'm like, yes, yes, absolutely. And I'm always telling people adolescents are so brilliant. They're so passionate. Like on the one hand, yes, we're trying to figure out how to support them. And on the other hand, they have so many strengths and so many things working in their favor if we just hone in on some of them. And you mentioned these three things. There was pediatrics, internal medicine, family medicine. What made you decide that it was the pediatrics channel that you would focus on before going into adolescent medicine?
There are two things. One, very intellectual one. I thought that it was really important to understand the development coming up to adolescence. I thought that would be a good grounding. So just, understanding from birth to adolescence, what is that? And, how does the adolescent develop? I knew that pediatrics would give me much more depth in that. The other thing was Although I liked working with older people, I did not want to work at the time. We had a veterans administration where it was people who had come from wars, and then they have a special hospital that they're in, and they have lots and lots of chronic conditions, and they weren't that interesting to me. And I didn't want to work in the VA. And if you did internal medicine, you had to work in the VA. So that was the silly reason. But really, the main reason was I just wanted to understand development, and pediatrics is where you understand that best.
Oh my gosh. I know a lot of pediatricians who'll be listening to this conversation will be like, yes, absolutely. Yes, 1000 times. And as you were going through your journey of learning, did you get your peds training and adolescent medicine training in the same place, or did you have to transition from one school to another school?
Yes, I did. In the country, I lived on the West Coast in California. That's where I grew up. I went to medical school in the Midwest, which was the University of Illinois. Residency, I stayed in Illinois and went to the University of Chicago, but University of Chicago did not have a training program for adolescent medicine. So I went back to across the country to California for my training and finished at the University of California, San Francisco. So yes, I went to a different place, and, I had to because I didn't have a choice. I actually loved Chicago, but there was no training of the kind that I wanted there. So I had to leave.
And how was that, sort of transitioning from one place to another and then sort of back as a young learner and as a woman? How was that, sort of transition? Because I hear a lot of students saying, moving from one place to another can be quite daunting and it's been quite stressful. What was that experience like for you? And what are some of the things that you did that helped you through those various transitions?
Yeah, I've always imagined that my ancestors must have been nomadic because my whole family moves, so I can adapt pretty easily. I love, again, when you go from the Midwest to, even though it's one country, when you go from the Midwest to the West to the East, culture is very different, and understanding that, and again, learning how to work within it and adapt is of high interest to me. I found it quite stimulating. But what I do whenever I've moved, and in my career, I have moved a number of times over the, almost 30 years, that one of the things that I always do real quick is I find a church, I get involved in the church. If there's some, other things that might be there that's volunteer for teens or something that is of interest, I try to get involved right away so that I am a part of the community I'm in, not just going to school. Even in med school, I did that. So that's one of my ways to really kind of ground myself and meet people outside of whatever training I'm doing or job.
And I absolutely love that, being part of the community that you're going to live in for some time. And I think it's such an important thing for international medical graduates, for instance, to hear about, because a lot of them have to leave their homes and going to new places. And sometimes people do feel quite lost. And so, finding other things in the community that you're interested in and plugging in as soon as you can sounds like such a great pro tip, especially for somebody who's going into a very new place. So thank you for that, Dr. Leslie.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
sometimes too, you can go to the wrong church first.
Yeah.
You just don't lose hope. Keep checking until
Keep
you find.
checking. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always found somewhere, even in the most rural place, I have
Yes.
found somewhere where I could call my, community home.
Oh, wow. I remember there was a time I was looking for a church, and I remember just walking in and being like, wow, this is not, no. Like within 5 minutes. And I was just like, it had taken time to get there on the Sunday. I was just like, what time is the next bus to go back
Yeah.
in the direction I need to get home? But then I'm glad that we didn't give up, as a family, and were able to finally get, a community that we were more comfortable in and that was more warm and embracing. And so we're like, okay, at least we finally found a landing spot. So I really love that. And just shifting a bit, In your adolescent medicine training, what were some of the highlights of that training experience for you?
I think each step you have more autonomy to be a doctor, and make decisions. I think that was really exciting to me to, have patients in the program I trained in. It was very highly focused on research. And so when you were in the clinic, it's different from now, but you had your attendings, but they weren't necessarily paying extreme close attention. They were usually more concerned about, whatever research they were doing or, you know, um, and so you would have a patient, and I had a couple of patients that were really, they had been missed. You know how teenagers, if they complain of abdominal pain and nobody can find it, then they send it to adolescent medicine because they think they have mental health. And, I had two patients, one who had a heart condition. And for whatever reason, it was referring pain to the abdomen, and another girl who had a postpartum cardiomyopathy, and they thought that she had a sexually transmitted infection. And so I loved being able to delve into those and really get the person in the right place. One was life threatening, and so it was really great to be able to be a person to help this woman who had gone to so many doctors figure out what was wrong. So I think that was really exciting. You were right in your element, doing what you want to do and making a difference. The other part was that I found that I did like research. I did not do that fully, 100% of my career, but I've always done some research. And I loved the ability to try to answer a question and, see how you could, move forward with that.
Ah, those are fantastic, and thank you so much for sharing them. And while, there were these highs, are there any lows that you experienced during your Atlas medicine training that you're comfortable to share?
Yeah, I think that probably the hardest part, I got married the last year of my residency and had by the time, I was there, I had a little baby, 1-year-old baby, and who is wonderful. But, my marriage was difficult because we were both doctors. We were both training. We were in two different cities. Once we were in two different states, but we were in two different cities. And so by then we had moved together. And it didn't work out so well. So it was really hard in my personal life. It was hard to manage that. And what the good part is where my training was. I was within an hour of my mom and my grandmother, and that I was back home basically. So I had a lot of family support to go through what ended up being a divorce, and then becoming a single mom. So that was hard. Learning how to adjust because you have dreams of the way you think your life is going to be, and when it doesn't come out that way, it was hard. So I'd say that was the hardest part, is balancing everything that I needed to do in the fellowship with what was happening in my personal life. Medicine doesn't really give you a lot of room for those things, so I had to find that room, and I had support, but that was hard, I think. And again, knowing that I was going to need to move because I was not going to stay in San Francisco. It's not the best place to raise kids, in my opinion, and definitely as a single mom. So I needed to find somewhere else to move to where I thought that I could, my daughter and I could thrive. So I think that for me was the hardest part, is more my personal life rather than the fellowship. It was in many ways a joy all the time, but it was the personal life blending with that became hard.
Oh, wow. And thank you for sharing that. I think not a lot is said about doctors and our personal lives. We're usually told, check it at the door, it's going to interfere with how you practice. And you're like, but we're humans, and
Yes.
life is happening in the background, and having to actually experience, the kind of thing that you just described. I can't even begin to imagine what that was like. And you're trying to be a mom, and you're trying to also finish up your fellowship. And I think just knowing that you've been through that and you've been able to thrive and grow, after that is encouraging for somebody else who might be going through something similar and having to, do their training. And so I really thank you for sharing that experience. And I'm just wondering, fast forward a little bit. So now, you have finished adolescent medicine, your training. How was that transition for you from going from a learner to now a specialist or a staff physician?
Yeah, it's somewhat like I'm sure what you're experiencing. I decided to move again across the country. I went to Washington, D.C., which is on the East Coast, because the job was good, there. But what they wanted me to do was create an adolescent medicine program. They did not have one at Georgetown University. So my daughter and I didn't know anybody there. And again, joined a church, got, connected with old college mates who happened to, live there that I hadn't been as close to. And my charge was really to start adolescent medicine in the pediatrics department. So it was scary, but it was also fun, and it was something that I didn't know that I liked. And the rest of my career, I have done things like this. I love to start things. I love to, again, you go out in the community, you find out what's there, because I didn't know Washington, D.C. So I would spend a lot of time before the clinic was ready to open, learning what was in the community and finding mentors. That was really important. And that's probably why I was successful, because I was able to find some mentors to help me that were in the city. It was one of the most amazing and blessed things that happened to me. I met a woman who was from Trinidad, who was actually a very expensive childcare provider, but she had never worked with a Black person. And I couldn't afford a lot, I'm just starting out. But she decided to work with me and my daughter. And from that age, she was pre-K, so about 3 to 4 years old, until she was 13. Victoria worked with us, and just it was, that's so unusual to be able to have the same person for 10 years, and she was amazing. It was nice. It was like a grandmother, in a sense, because I didn't realize when she was probably in her early 70s when she started working with us, because she was in her mid 80s when we moved, and she was, old enough that she didn't need somebody. But that childcare was amazing, and that she really helped me feel comfortable that my daughter had somebody with the right values and the right, experience when I wasn't able to be there when I was at work.
That's so amazing being able to have the same childcare and reliable childcare over those 10 years, even as
Yes.
you were in transition, because I think childcare the world over, just getting the right person who has the right values and you can trust with your children is something that I think every mother really struggles with at some point, especially when they're much younger. And I'm so glad you were able to get this wonderful lady, and we're giving her flowers now,
Yeah.
because that's amazing. That's truly truly amazing. In terms of that whole process of connecting with mentors, what were some key things you were looking out for and, stumbled upon that were a pleasant, surprise in your mentorship journey?
Well, I was very fortunate in DC at the time. Renee Jenkins, who was the chair of pediatrics at Howard University, and she was adolescent medicine, and she was really well known. She would get asked to do a lot of things. And I didn't know her, I knew her a little bit because I met her at meetings, but she would get asked to do so many things. She didn't have time for them. She would send some things to me, things like talking on the radio about reproductive health, or a meeting to go talk about substance use. That's my area of interest. And, she would give me these things because nobody knew who I was or that I was even there. But because of her sponsorship, I guess that was helpful. And I knew could reach out and say, I'm having this problem. I'm trying to understand how to manage this. What do you think? She was there. And it made me know that, if there was anything wrong, I could come to her. Even, now we're closer as well, because I've known her all these years. But she was very important to me back then, because I literally moved to a place I didn't know a soul. And she knew it, I guess. And, because she was such a big luminary for me. It wasn't somebody that I felt like I could just, call. But she knew I was there, and she started reaching out to me, and I really appreciated it to this day.
Oh, wow. That is so great. And I'm so glad that you had someone that you could be able to reach out to who was also, giving you assignments as well,
Yes.
and sharing assignments. Because I think sometimes when you're the new person, there's also that pressure, like, let me do everything. But then it just sounds like actually this is the opportunity to really engage other people and mentor other people and give them opportunities as well. And I so appreciate that. And which brings me to a conversation you and I had about the importance of tribe. Talk a bit about the importance of tribe, especially in the context of you're in a new place and a new specialty, and why it's important to cultivate your tribe.
Yeah, you have to have home. For me, again, I've moved to different places, but when you're with your people, you just feel so fulfilled. Like going to the adolescent medicine meeting, that was really important to me because, again, I was the only one for many years. I was the only one at the university I was at. And even though Howard was in another part of town and there was a children's hospital, you don't have time in a day, especially, with a child, to go bounce around and talk to other institutions. And so being able to go to the adolescent health medicine meeting and seeing all these people and they come in and you don't have to explain why you like teenagers. You don't have to explain, why you want to work in substance use prevention or how you work with parents or confidentiality. Everybody kind of gets it. And you just relax. You can begin to kind of move beyond those things. And just feel like you're not unusual. There's all these people that think just like you and have some similar goals. So I think you've got to find your people, and I don't mean it like it could be any race, any nationality. It's more or people from all over the world. When you meet your people and you find that, you sit in it, and it gives you strength and it gives you the ability to move forward. When things are hard, that there are people that support you no matter what. And, sometimes they're not even doctors, right? They're friends, people I would meet at church. They're people you meet just, waiting too long at the car dealership for your car to get fixed. And, there's another one, you bring them in and those become your people. I think, maybe if I had come from a very big family and I had stayed in that space, I would feel differently. But, I come from a smaller family and I was in spaces that, they weren't in. So for me, it was very important. And as a adolescent medicine doctor, there's only maybe 600, 700 of us in the whole country. So, you don't always run into people who do adolescent medicine. So it was real important. Like I know it must be for you.
Yes, absolutely. And I really love that pro tip, because especially when people come back from their fellowships and they're starting out, practicing, just finding like-minded people, or, like the way you've just very beautifully expressed, like you can just relax. You don't have to explain what it is that you do. You don't have to, sort of try and find the right language around. You're just like, you get it. You get it. I know that you get it. And so I really appreciate that. And I really valued the first time you had shared it with me, and I've kept it with me, to the point where I'm now being more intentional about when someone's like, I'm coming into town and, do you have time for a coffee? I'd like to meet somebody who's doing adolescent medicine. I'm just like, yes, I'll find some time,
Yes.
Yes, let's get, even if it's 30 minutes or 1 hour, absolutely. And, working towards getting to the professional meetings, like the SAM meeting, because there are not that many. I think for adolescent medicine, in Africa, for instance, there's one that's coming up in Uganda, which is a great opportunity for people who work in adolescent medicine and want to do that. However, globally, I think there are only two main ones. I think SAM and IAAH. I think those are the
Yes.
two that I'm actively aware of. So I think it's important to be able to hone in on where the professional meetings are and being intentional about going to connect with your tribe and just being able to sort of drink from that well. And I love that so much.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Leslie. I know that you've mentioned substance use in adolescents as an area of focus. How did you end up, focusing on that within adolescent medicine? Because I think there's so many subspecialties within adolescent medicine that are so amazing. How did you focus in on substance use as your area of interest and focus?
I think because when I was in fellowship, I actually was interested in prevention of youth violence. I didn't have a mentor, that program didn't have anybody that focused on that. So I wasn't able to get very far. But I thought when I got out on my own, I would focus, on violence and prevention. But as I really read and as I thought about it more, I felt like I wanted to get a little bit behind that, and thinking about like substance use, trying to prevent that actually prevents many things. It can prevent teen pregnancy unwanted. It can prevent violence and, mental health problems. And so for me, and hardly anybody was really focusing on substance use in adolescent, even in adolescent medicine. A lot of people go in about it for reproductive health or these other things. There weren't a lot of people looking at how do we address substance use in our country. Our kids have such trouble with substance use, and most people who are adults who have a substance use disorder began during adolescence. So I thought if I can work on this, maybe I can make a difference in this area. And it's also, they're some of the most rewarding patients to work with. Kids, I had a drug treatment program before I became chair of pediatrics. I ran a drug treatment program in the children's hospital as well. And it's something, drugs, it's a disease, right? It gets in your brain and it kind of messes up the way you think. And as you can help a person move away from that and move away, you watch their brain wake up again. You watch their dreams come back. You watch their family be able to come back together. It's such a beautiful thing. And the younger you are when you're getting off substances, the more likely you're going to be able to live your life better and stay off of them. So I thought it was something we really could make an impact with if we focused on it.
I absolutely really am in awe of how thoughtful you are about, this is the place. Actually, this is the thing that I want to do because of the ripple effect it will have in an adolescent's life. And, I really love that. I think I'm still in the stage where I'm just like, I love everything. So I love so many things in adolescent medicine. And at the same time, for me, this is like a masterclass in, just being able to be thoughtful around and, very intentional around where will I be able to have most impact if I hone in on it. And I so appreciate that. So, a few steps forward, you've done adolescent medicine, you focused in on substance use. How did you land being the chair of pediatrics? How did that come about?
I think what happens is I've kept my same mission. My mission has been to improve the health and well-being of adolescents. I didn't go into adolescent medicine to be an academic medicine, but in our country, that's really the only way you can exist. You need to be within a academic situation. The reimbursement and private practice or in other it is so low, because we take time with our patients. And pediatrics here, you might be every 15 minutes, every 20 minutes. We take a little more time because we need to talk to the parent, we need to talk to the child, we need to talk to them alone. The topics we have are sometimes very heavy. So, in our country, you get paid kind of more on volume in pediatrics, and you don't have volume in adolescents. So I accidentally find myself in academic medicine. But then when you find yourself there, and I learned a lot about the system as I was building the program in Georgetown. What I also saw was that we need to train people differently. We need to, help people understand some of these common things. Because I did primary care adolescent medicine for 10 years when I was at Georgetown. So, I had a sense of all the kinds of things that we see that I know no people don't get trained on when they're learning their medical school or when they go into pediatrics. And so in the sense that I want to continue to help improve the health and well-being of kids, being a chair allows me to help look closely at our training programs look closely at how our hospital manages, their kids. Now, I'm the chair for every age, but being there as an adolescent medicine doc, I can see the gaps that occur sometimes in how we care for teens, which is, a huge chunk of the kids we care for in a hospital system. So, being able to impact teaching, being able to impact, how the hospital manages kids and adolescents in particular, and being able to have a national platform to really work from, to go beyond just my one place. So I felt that I could have a broader influence as a chair in some of the areas that I thought really needed some change in focus, as medicine is changing so dramatically right now. So I thought that was, I could continue to work on my mission in this new space. And I also believe you shouldn't stay somewhere so long. Some people, for me, 10 years is a good amount of time. Once I've been, working or in a leadership position, not just, but in a leadership position for 10 years, I begin to think, maybe, okay, I've taken it this far. Maybe there's somebody else. It's now time for them to take it to the next level, and just with a different brain and a different energy. So I have found myself wanting to be challenged in that way. And everybody's clock is different. For me, it's about 10 years. I start thinking, okay, have I done everything I can do here? Is it time for me to move to a different challenge in a different space, so that I can do the most I can do while I can still do things?
Oh wow, this is leadership 101. I absolutely love that so much, and just being able to reflect on again the intentionality around your mission, and I love how you say you're the chair of all ages, and the
Yeah.
gaps, you're able to pick up on the gaps, especially for adolescents, and be able to sort of figure out solutions for that. For an adolescent medicine specialist or any other specialist who's looking to leadership, what are one or two nuggets that you can share in terms of how to position yourself towards such positions?
Yeah, I think one thing I will say from the time when I was in Kenya is, I do think that the people that come out of their training are ready, in ready in a different way for leadership than people that train here. I've been so impressed by what people do right after they're done, which is amazing. So I do think, we all have that capacity to be leaders. And for sure, you're the leader, right, of adolescent medicine in Kenya, because, you're there and you have to take that role on. But I think the things to me that are important is, one, again, mentorship, watching. I've watched people and how they led. There are people that lead and they hold everything for themselves. And then, like every opportunity, they just keep holding it for themselves. And then I watch people who spread opportunity out, who really try to elevate all the people that they were supposed to be helping to lead. And the wealth of a leader is in all the people that they have helped get to do what they feel their mission is. And so that's a joy to me. And I think, so watching people and seeing how people are successful and seeing how the impact they have. I did a lot of that. I also did very formal, courses, and I took opportunities when there were leadership trainings to learn, because in medicine, you don't really have that. At least here, you don't have that direct training of how to be a leader. What kind of leader are you? What is your personality type? What kind of people do you need around you to fill the gaps that you don't excel in, so that as a whole, you can be a great leadership team? Those things, I think it's nice to learn about those things. But mentorship, watching, and deciding what kind of a person, how do you want to show up? And the key thing is, let people know. Let people know you are interested, because most people aren't interested in taking on more work, right? Most people aren't. So when leaders find out that somebody's interested in taking on another aspect of their career, that will help you, be known as somebody who they might want to ask, do you want to try this? Do you want to take it on? But if they don't know, you might get missed.
Oh my gosh, especially that one. There are so many, again, very many nuggets. And I'm here writing all the notes. I'm like, yes, Oh my gosh, let people know, that you are interested. And I think because a lot of people sort of like, they've really grabbed onto the vision of, being like a duck, being smooth on the top and, fiercely pedaling under. And what I'm hearing you saying is, oh, please let people know that this is what you want. This is what you want to take on, and you want to be in that space to have the opportunity to take on more responsibility, get into a leadership capacity. And I so appreciate all the nuggets you shared there. What impact has being a Black woman had, on you through, that course of all those years of practice and experience that you've shared with us during the course of this safari?
Yeah, I think, showing up clearly as a woman, as a Black woman, the good part of that is, again, in this kind of position where I'm more visible, is I think that it helps so many more people to see that they can do this. Right now in our country, in academic medicine, there are 2 Black women chairs outside of the historically Black medical schools. There's, 3 of those that have pediatrician, Black pediatrician. But in the predominantly white universities and medical schools, there's 2 of us. So they're not a lot, but because there are 2 of us, and we both show up in a lot of different places, there are many, many more now behind us, that are coming, that see it's possible. So I think the good part of being a Black woman trying to be visible is that there are a whole bunch of people that I don't even know, that can see it. And if you can see it, you can do it. Representation, I think, is really important. So I think the good part of it is, there's going to be many more people coming because they've seen us. But I think the hard part is, having your voice be heard as a woman and as a Black person. It's sometimes difficult. I used to play a game because remember, my mentor in DC would recommend me to do things that, she couldn't do. And so I found, I would be in these meetings with people and but I would play this game because do they want me there because I'm Black, because I'm a woman, because I'm adolescent medicine? You didn't always know why you were there. And so I would play this game and I would make a comment, that was maybe about the field that had nothing to do with being a woman or being, equity. And then you would notice, oh, nobody heard me. Like they're not listening. And so then I'd say, oh, well, I think, this will be very important for African American kids. Like, oh, yes. And I'm like, okay, they have me here because I'm Black. That's why they want me here. But, it doesn't mean I would stay in that box, but it was always helpful to know. And still to this day, why do you want me in this room? Why am I here? Because our voices are not heard. As a woman, sometimes you're completely not listened to. As a Black person, you're completely not listened to, or they think they only listen to you about diversity. Now, that's not I am Black and I've grown up and I have a Black experience, but I didn't go to school to be a equity officer, right? There are people that are better at that than I, but because I, show up looking Black and as a woman, people will take you as, oh my God, she can speak for all the Black people, and I try very much not to be in that space. What I used to think when I was a kid was, what would so many of our icons have done? What would have Martin Luther King have done? What would have Mandela? What would have these people have done with their amazing minds if they didn't have to deal with trying to address racism? How much further could our world have been if we didn't have to deal with racism and bias and people just dismissing you? And that part makes me sad, but I keep pushing through, and I have a sense of humor about it. I'm very selective about what I'm going to get angry about and push, because you could get angry about something every day and just have a miserable life. But I'm always out there. You're always on the tip, right? People see me, and it's always a challenge. And even now, I'm diversifying my department. I have 650 people in my department. And there were no people of color who were leaders, right? And so I'm changing that, and I'm changing that, and I'm changing that. And I haven't had any backlash yet, but I do expect it could happen, at any time, because people get nervous when they see things change. But I continue on because the alternative is not something I could live with.
I really appreciate you sharing that. And, especially the part about because I'm the Black person in the room doesn't mean I represent all Black
Yeah.
people. Because I think even during my fellowship, I really had to work around, my thoughts around I'm not representing all of Africa, in this room
Yeah.
right now. I'm just Jerry. I'm here to learn, and be able to see what skills I can be able to get from this space and experience. But then the pressure was there. Like, if you do something wrong, all African people or all Black people are this and the other because you didn't do this right. So just working out of that mental space that was a hard flex for me. That was a very hard flex. And it's really helpful to hear, about the various thoughts you have about being a Black woman in that space. And at the same time, why do you want me in this particular room? Why do you want me in this particular space? And I think that will be a really important question for me moving forward in different engagements. And I so value and appreciate you sharing that with me.
Yeah, you know what I will say about that?
Yeah.
It's not that you want to stay in the box, but when you know what they want you there
right.
It makes you clearer about how you need to make your voice heard when you want to speak about something else, who you need to partner with so people hear you. Yeah, because I don't like to stay in boxes, but it's good to know if they are trying to put you in a box.
Yeah. And it's so important. Thank you for that. It's been so amazing getting to hear about the wonderful path and safari that your medical education journey has been, Dr. Leslie. And I so appreciate you, taking the time to walk us through the different facets of your training. I'm wondering, do you have any word of advice or a nugget or an encouragement to somebody who's thinking about going into specialist training, as they're in the contemplation stage?
Yeah, I think when I watch people over the years, a lot of times there's an interest, but then they say, oh, it's going to be extra years. I just need to really get out. I need to really, make a living. I have a family. I can't keep taking this low salary. The thing I would say is when you're doing what you love, I mean, every single day of my life as an adolescent medicine doctor was a joy. I love working with teens. And had I not taken those 3 years, and I had been a general pediatrician, for me, I would have relished those moments when I would see the teen, right? But now, because I took those 3 years, 100% of the time, I can do what I just love. And I think it helps you. Our work is hard, right? It's hard. It's not easy to be a doctor. You're always a doctor, kind of like a priest, you're always the doctor wherever you walk, whatever you do. People come up to you, they ask, questions, even, strangers. And so you're always on in a way. And it's nice to be doing something that you truly love, and taking those 3 years and a whole lifetime, is not that much. So I would say if you love something, go do it. There are no rules. The world, your choices are open. The world is open. You can do what you take yourself to do, right? So I think it's real important. If you are really turned on by a particular area of medicine, then you need to go for it, because the alternative is that you don't get to spend your time doing that thing you love. So I think that's really important. And some people, they go out and then they come back and they do their specialty later. They don't go straight through, and that's okay too. But I think it's important to be true to yourself, so you can have peace.
I absolutely, truly love that. Thank you so much. Even for us who found the specialty that we want to go into, I'm, still learning from that and just being able to pursue the thing that we love and go for it. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and with us on this journey and this safari. And I do appreciate all the nuggets. I feel like almost like the show notes are just going to be full of nuggets from top to bottom. I'm going to have a hard time limiting the word limiting the word count on this conversation for sure. And I'm hoping that, also as part of the notes, that maybe I can share maybe a social media handle in the notes so that if somebody would want to reach out directly, that they're able to do so with you if they have any other questions.
Yes, that's fine. I'm, let me see. I'm older, but it's at Ask Teen Doc is my,
your handle.
I think
is that on X Twitter?
Yeah, that's X. That's why I was trying to, I paused because I was trying to remember the right name.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm probably more on LinkedIn. I mean, I don't have a lot of followers on, I have a few, but I don't have thousands of followers on the other one.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I will put that as part of the notes. I really appreciate you taking the time. Let me just state that you are one of the mentors that I am watching and I'm learning from. And I'm so glad that you got to visit Kenya and you and I got to sit down and have a cup of coffee. That was so impactful for me. And
me too. I was so excited. It was wonderful. It's not easy to walk into, and you're the only one in the country. That is really hard. And so it's really great to see you taking that on. It's like, I'm doing this.
Yes, absolutely. Like I loved it. And, also just knowing that I can be able to reach out and ask you questions. And I'm like, oh, Dr. Leslie, I'm stuck with this or I'm having this. It's so key. And I so appreciate that. And I don't take it for granted. And I just want to celebrate you and to honor and thank you so, so much for taking the time, your morning, my evening, to have this conversation. For those who've listened to this conversation, we look forward to hearing, the various things that, popped out for you, that were impactful for you. Let us know what your feedback is. And I know also Dr. Leslie Walker-Harding will also want to hear, what that was like for you on X and also on LinkedIn as well. Yes. And until next time, everybody, bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
I'm so glad you stayed tuned. Please get the word out and share it with at least 3 people. Make this episode like a chain letter. Share it, share it, share it. Come back for the next leg of our safari where we'll be talking about...
Just go for it. Learn. It will be for your good in the long run and for the good of the society, be able to serve better.
Yeah.
Our profession is a call to service. That's how I see myself. From Alliance High School, the motto is strong to serve. So learn and be strong to serve.
Listeners are advised to use their own judgment and discretion when applying any information discussed in this and all podcast episodes to their specific situation. Always seek the advice of a qualified professional if you have any concerns or questions regarding a particular subject matter. You can find this and other episodes of this podcast on our website at www.fellowshipsafaris.org. You can also find all our episodes on all podcast platforms. Reach out to us on social media as Fellowship Safaris on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and our Twitter handle is @fellowshipsafar. You could also send us an email on fellowshipsafaris@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you and interacting with what you have to say about the Fellowship Safaris podcast. It takes a village to make this podcast. The executive producer and original music is done by Mokavi Maweu. The sound engineer is Tevin Sudi with thanks to AQ Studios. Graphic design was done by Benjamin Mboya. We would like to give a special shout out to Josephine Karianjahe and Melissa Mbogwa of Africa Podfest. All rights reserved by Dr. Jerry Karianjahe and the Fellowship Safaris podcast.